Hey guys, it's your average middle-aged American back again with another reaction video. This one is about Spain. Is Spain sick of tourists? I have not seen this video, but based on the title, I'm going to say yeah. Which is a little disheartening. I guess we'll get into why and see what's going on. But before we get started, I just want to thank all of you guys, my subscribers, even those who don't subscribe and still leave comments. It's really helped the channel grow. We hit our 500 goal for subscribers, and now we're going for 1,000. So if you haven't subscribed yet, I appreciate it if you did. Thumbs up goes a long way. Enough jibber jabber. Let's see what's going on with Spain.
You may have read that protests are breaking out in Spain because locals say that tourism to this country has gotten out of control. Plus, tourists are being confronted by graffiti telling them to go home, and Barcelona has just announced that it is going to ban Airbnb. So in this video, I'm going to tell you what's going on, why it's happening, and how it might impact on your Spain plans. All right, let's get into it.
All right, a couple things. First of all, how's the volume? My last couple videos, people have suggested that I increase the volume. So I want to make sure that I'm doing that without over-modulating. I think that's the word. You know, where things get distorted. I'm all about signal to noise ratio. Anyway, let me know about the volume. Just put down in the comments. Average, great, poor, whatever. So that I can make proper adjustments. On my little screen here, I'm in the yellow. So before I always tried to be at the edge of green and yellow. Now I'm kind of mid-yellow. So let me know about that. Both my voice and the video itself. Before we even get started on this, what a horrible precedent this is to send to people. You know, be careful what you wish for, because I got a hard time believing that tourism is not a positive impact on Spain's economy. I don't know a lot about Spain. I don't know hardly anything about Spain. I'm going to learn, but I don't know a lot of products that are made in Spain. I can't remember the last time I turned over a product and it said made in Spain. So I imagine tourism's probably impactful on their economy. I plan on seeing quite a bit of Europe, and all of a sudden now, I'm not sure if I even want to go to Spain, and I'm 27 seconds into a video. Let me know your thoughts about it. This channel is a little different than most. You know, the people in this channel are older and wiser than the average. Most are European, and they give quite a bit of insight, and they have conversations both with me and amongst themselves, and I learn a ton from the comments. So keep the comments coming. Let's learn some stuff about each other. Let's see what else this video's got to say.
Spain has been welcoming tourists, millions of tourists every year since the 1960s, when the country opened up to tourism. And nowadays, tourism accounts for about 12% of the country's GDP. And I think Spaniards have pretty much always had a pretty good relationship with tourism.
12%. Last time I checked, GDP in Spain was like $1.5 trillion. So 12% is what, $170 billion? You're willing to throw that away? Guess you are. Let's see.
Understanding that it brings income and it brings jobs to the country. But in the last 6 months, something has changed. Anti-tourism protests have broken out across the country in key tourist destinations like Malaga, Cádiz, the Balearic Islands, you know, Ibiza, Mallorca, Menorca, as well as the Canary Islands. In Tenerife, tens of thousands of people protested with slogans like, "This is not tourism, this is colonization," as well as saying the Canary Islands are not up for sale. I even read that some protesters had started hunger strikes. And then in May, in Malaga, 10,000 people took to the streets to protest tourism, and more protests have happened since, and I believe more are coming. But it's not just protests. Also in Malaga, there's graffiti, sometimes on the doors of tourist apartments that says, "This used to be my home," or "Malaga stinks of tourists." And then in Barcelona and the Balearic Islands, you've also got protesters.
Welcome, tourist. The rent of holiday apartments in this neighborhood destroys the local sociocultural fabric and promotes speculation. Many local residents are forced to move out. Listen, it's not the best sentence structure I've ever seen, but I get the point. Enjoy your stay! Exclamation point would have been nice there. I don't think that they're being sincere. I don't think that they want you to enjoy your stay. What do you guys think? It just doesn't seem very sincere.
And then in Barcelona and the Balearic Islands, you've also got protesters who are putting up signs on popular beaches, fake signs saying things like falling rocks or dangerous jellyfish to dissuade people from going there. So what's going on? Why are all these anti-tourism protests breaking out? Well, before we get into it, I think it's important to say that the organizers of the protests have tried to make it really clear that they're not against tourists themselves. What they are against is how tourism is being managed in Spain. For example, in Cádiz, the manifesto of the protesters says, although we're not against tourists coming to visit our beautiful city, we do take a strong position against touristification, against completely uncontrolled and deregulated mass tourism. And then the organizer of the Ibiza protest said, we have nothing against people coming to visit our beautiful island. But he goes on to say, a side effect of mass tourism is that house prices are rising. Everyone feels that everything is collapsing. More restaurants require more workers, but these workers require places to live, and there are 10 people looking for every place to live. And there's the rub. The key issue here for protesters is housing or lack of access to housing. So it's estimated that Spain will need another 600,000 homes by next year to house all the people living in this country. And currently it's taking families years and years to save to be able to purchase their first home, given rising costs and low salaries. And people are spending on average 40% of their salary, of their earnings, on their mortgage payment. The crisis is particularly acute for young people. I read the other day that the average age that young people are leaving their parents' home is 34 years old. Now, it's always been a little bit higher in Spain, but 34 years old.
Wow.
So this is a whole generation that...
I left at 18. Out. Probably not the best decision. But hey, it is what it is. Sink or swim. 18, out the door.
Really can't get into their first homes. It seems like the housing crisis is particularly acute on the Balearic Islands, for example, where you've got people living in caravans, working on the island. Or for example, one teacher that I read about who lives in Mallorca and flies almost every day to Ibiza, to one of the other islands where she teaches, because she can't afford to live on Ibiza. She can't afford to pay rent there. So presumably she lives with her family on Mallorca, and she's taking 40 flights a month. And a lot of people, a lot of protesters are putting the blame on vacation rentals, because when you have cities like Malaga, where 42% of the homes in the historic center are Airbnbs, then
wow,
it's a really clear target for a lot of these protesters. But here's the thing,
But I mean, all right, I understand some of this. I don't understand all of it. I did take real estate classes in college. I understand the home shortage, but where I live, Airbnbs are generally above median homes. In other words, they're like luxury homes. Is a teacher or a restaurant worker the targeted person to buy a home that is actually an Airbnb? I guess I'm misunderstanding what's going on. If it was, I mean, why don't they just build an apartment building or something, and have, I mean, a lot of people, talk to a lot of people in Germany, and they got no problem renting out apartments that are, 1 or 2 bedroom apartments for years and years and years. So I guess what I'm getting at is in where I live, the average teacher, the average restaurant worker, the average anything normal, quite frankly, is not going to buy a home that is rented out as an Airbnb. It's in a different price. They're usually bigger, they have more bedrooms, they're designed for tourists. Now, is that different across the world? I don't know. I've never even stayed in an Airbnb, so I don't know. But the Airbnbs that I've seen, are 5 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms with a pool, and that doesn't seem like something a teacher would buy to me, especially in an area, that's on the water in Spain. Correct me if I'm wrong. Why doesn't someone just go in there and build some apartment buildings and make some money? Let me know. If you know, let me know. Trademarked.
It's not just about housing for the protesters. That's the big issue, but it's also about other things. Protesters are saying that the influx of tourism, the mass tourism, is starting to impact on their traditional way of life.
Look at that background. That's amazing. I mean, that's just amazing. That didn't even look real. So here's the question. In the world of capitalism, you have supply and demand is the simplest way to put it. Supply goes down or demand goes up. Either way, pricing increases. So why don't they just price out the tourist? Put a real high tax on hotels. They could put a real high tax on Airbnbs. They could just tax out the tourist stuff, rental cars, that kind of thing, where it doesn't really affect the locals, but it raises the economy. So that's going to probably drop your visitation, but at the same time, you're still going to make that money. That's classic capitalism. I used to go to Las Vegas every year. And when I went, it was for a convention, one of the biggest conventions in the world. And a room that goes for $100 on a normal Wednesday would be $500. A hotel room. That's supply and demand. And Vegas has more hotel rooms than probably anywhere, as far as a density. If you go down the Vegas Strip, those hotels have thousands of rooms each. And there's like 40 of them. So, but the supply and demand was there. And I would stay longer, because it's Vegas, after the convention, and boom, the rates would drop, down to normal. So my stay would end up averaging out to an okay price per night, because I'd pay the crazy convention price, and then I'd pay the crazy, we need these rooms filled price, and it would average out. So why don't they just do that? Why don't they just, I don't know, I don't get it. I mean, you could just tax and tax, which is weird coming from an American, but that's how you do it. You raise the money, you reduce the visitation without spray painting your walls and threatening people.
For example, in Catalonia, there's a very strong and very rich nudist tradition, nude bathing tradition. And Catalan nudists are saying that in the secluded beaches where they have long gone to be nude together and bathe and sunbathe, now tourists are starting to go there, tourists who are wearing clothes and who are making them feel uncomfortable in these spaces where they used to have privacy. So one of the longtime nudists said that these areas are being invaded, mostly in the summer months, by tourists who not only wear swimsuits, but also have a very disrespectful manner to nudists. We feel displaced in our own spaces and we fear losing them. Or take the beautiful town of Binibeca Bay, I hope I've said that right, on Menorca. So this is kind of like a little housing development that was built in the 1970s to replicate the traditional fishermen's homes. And it's beautiful whitewashed homes with narrow lanes. Now there's 195 property owners in this little town, but it's becoming one of the most popular attractions on Menorca. And this year, 1 million people will visit this town of 195 property owners, this small town. And one of the homeowners said they went into our homes, they sat on chairs, they take things, they climb on our walls. I assume she means the walls on the outsides of the buildings. They have outdoor drinking parties. So really just the influx of this million people is disrupting their peaceful life in their small community. But that's not all. There's also concerns that...
Wait a minute. Are you telling me that they're breaking into homes? Is that what you're saying?
Take things, they climb on our...
They went into homes, they sat on chairs, they take things, climb on our walls, and have outdoor drinking parties. Do you not have police? I mean, it sounds like they're breaking laws. If they're breaking into homes and they're taking things, that's illegal, right? Just about anywhere, I would assume. You know, you could have rules against parties, you know, based on the time of day or whatever. I mean, that's neighborhood watch kind of stuff. You guys have neighborhood watch in your town, in your country? In America, we have neighborhood watch, which may or may not include some Karens. And it's just basically neighbors looking out for other neighbors. In bad areas, which I've never honestly lived in, but in some of the bad areas or areas that are having unusual crime activity, let's say, you know, areas that were once decent and now have become kind of what they consider out of control. They just have these neighborhood watch areas where they'll team up with the local police, and the police will drive through the neighborhood once a night, or, you know, just make it part of their route. But then the homeowners, you know, they may go in pairs and take turns, and they'll just walk the neighborhood for a half an hour or something. You know, mostly weekends is usually kind of when it happens. You know, if they have like a spree of cars getting broken into or something. So you'll have this neighborhood watch group that will be, you know, who knows, 20, 30, 40 people. And they'll just kind of take turns walking the neighborhood, just, you know, and if they see anything, they'll call the police. But it's kind of neighbors looking out for other neighbors. You know, you just kind of keep an eye on your neighbor. You know your neighbor, you know what kind of cars they drive, you know what's, you know, usually know what their work schedule is and that kind of thing. So if you see some, you know, white van pull up to someone's house in the middle of the day when you know the people are at work, you know, and they're loading things in the back of the van, then it's suspicious and you call somebody. Sometimes they go too far. But a lot of criminals have been caught from neighborhood watch groups. So that's what these people need to do. Neighborhood watch with a bat.
Walls, I assume she means the walls on the outsides of the buildings, they have outdoor drinking parties. So really just the influx of this million people is disrupting their peaceful life in their small community. But that's not all. There's also concerns that unregulated mass tourism could be having a permanent negative effect on many of the
Wow.
countries.
What is that? I get it. It's a cathedral. But what's going on here? See, this is a perfect example. I mean, look at this place. Who wouldn't want to look at this place? Other than maybe a kid. So you charge $50 to see it. You know, unless you're a resident. Well, unless you're a resident of Italy. Or Italy, I'm sorry. Unless you're a resident of Spain. If you're a citizen of Spain, doesn't cost you anything. If you're not, it costs you $50. And that goes towards the restoration, wear and tear, blah, blah, blah. I guarantee you, less people will go to this place and look at it. I'll pay the 50. Trust me, if I'm flying halfway across the world, I'm going to see the stuff that's worth seeing. A perfect example. You'll cut your attendance in half or more. You'll make some money. Look at this place. How tall is that? I mean, it's got to be 100 feet tall. Wow. Wow.
Ancient buildings and historic heritage. So in Valencia, scientists have done a study where they set up sensors in some of the city's historic buildings to measure the impact of tourist crowds over a period of 3 years. And they found that in key moments, CO2 levels would rise, humidity would rise.
I had a friend that got married in Spain. He's actually from England, but lives in America. He explained to me how much better America's healthcare system is than the UK's. Type. Type. Anyway, he got married in Spain. We couldn't make the trip. Wish we could. Had too much going on. I mean, I've seen pictures and they're beautiful, but wow. I don't know, Spain. I think you better get ready because I think I'm coming. One extra tourist. Don't be spitting on me or anything. 2 extra tourists, I should say.
Rise, temperature would rise, and this could be having long-lasting negative impacts on the buildings, effectively damaging them.
Wow.
One of the scientists said, I don't want to demonize tourism because it's a driver of the local economy, but better management is needed before historical monuments are damaged for future generations. Okay, so
that's it. Quit making things free. Quit making things $10. You know? If you got wear and tear issues on important things that are going to need restoration, charge people. I know that's an American way of looking at things, but it's also a very practical way of looking at things. Supply and demand. It's that simple. Raise the prices, and you know, if it's, they get a 50% tax. Start off low. You know, make it $20 to go inside of this cathedral. $20. 10 goes to the government to help with police and whatever. 10 goes to the church for restoration, maintenance, wear and tear. Maybe the cathedral is run by the government, but still it has to be, you know, tagged specifically for that. There you go. That doesn't solve the problem. Go to 30, go to 40, go to 50. Eventually, you're going to get the balance you want. That is free capitalism, free market. That's America. Like it or hate it, that's how it works out. It seems like a simple solution to me. And then if you've got situations where, you got a school from another country wants to go see it or whatever, then you can work out special discounts or all of that. Don't give me the poor shouldn't be, deprived of seeing beauty, and absolutely. I don't know how the poor got to Spain in the first place, but because you're already not going to charge people that, citizens of Spain, or charge them, 90% discount, whatever, because you still have wear and tear, because they're bringing their friends. It just seems simple to me. Maybe it's too simple. So simple it can't work.
That's a whole bunch of issues that Spain is dealing with right now. So what's being done about it? Well, cities have started to take action, and also the national government is looking at stepping in. So for example, in Mallorca, they're looking at limiting cruise ships, limiting rental cars at peak traffic times during the year, the summer months presumably, limiting the size of group tours. Then over in Barcelona, they're also looking at limiting the number of cruise ships that can dock and where they can dock. In Seville, something that makes me a little bit sad is that they are going to start charging people to enter into the Plaza de España, that beautiful square, which is a big tourist attraction. But really
I disagree with limiting anything. I say you limit it by pricing. Because when you limit how many cruise ships can dock somewhere or whatever, within reason, obviously, within some kind of reason. Perhaps you don't want them all docking the same day. So you'll say, okay, we have generally 21 cruise ships, a month. They need to be on 21 different days, something like that. I get that. But just limiting, we get 21 cruise ships a month, now we're going to get 3. That's stupid. In my opinion, my humble, average, middle-aged American opinion. I don't have a doctorate in economics, but I've taken enough business classes in my life. So, yeah. I say you regulate it by pricing. You might as well make the money. Why throw money away? Why say, okay, we're only going to have 3 or 7 or 12 cruise ships a month, and then and you're making the same amount of money per ship. Now you're making less money total. You may have solved your population problem or your infrastructure problem, but why not just make more money? Do the same thing. Make basic guidelines, increase pricing, increase port taxes. I've been on a lot of cruises. I know about port taxes. So just double your port taxes. Some of the cruise lines aren't going to pay it. Charge for your most beautiful, oldest things, to go to. Some people aren't going to go. The ones that go are giving you money to help restore it and maintain it. It's just simple to me. It just seems so simple. No one on a cruise ship to Spain is poor. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. And if they are, then they need to budget paying $20 to go see the nicest cathedral in Spain. That's just the way it is. It's not heartless. We're not talking about food. We're talking about tourism.
Biggest action that a lot of the cities are taking, and that's grabbing most of the headlines, is that they're cracking down on Airbnb and other tourist rental platforms. Cities like Malaga, Mallorca, as well as Santiago de Compostela have effectively frozen the issuing of new Airbnb or vacation rental licenses. Meanwhile, in Valencia, they're cracking down on illegal tourist rentals, which seems to be a problem there. But the city that's gone furthest in cracking down on Airbnb and other tourist rentals is Barcelona.
Wow.
So the city had passed a freeze on the issuance of new Airbnb licenses in 2014.
See, the problem with that is now that you're stifling competition by ordering the freeze. Just increase the taxes on it. Let the competition be free. You're making a barrier to entry into a market. That's not fair, because you're not taking the licenses away from the people that already have them. Of course, that wouldn't be fair either. But to say, okay, nobody else can get one, what do you think the people that own them are going to do? Supply and demand. So now their prices are going through the roof because there's no more competition. It's like a big conglomerate of current Airbnb owners. So they just raise their prices. They're making more money off of your problem. No. Double the taxes. Triple the taxes. Quadruple the taxes. And let anybody enter the market who wants to pay the money. And then you make the penalty stiffer for avoiding the taxes. It's just simple. Maybe I should be the chancellor of tourism for Spain. I don't know. It just seems so simple to me.
Airbnb and all other tourist rentals. Currently, there's about 10,000 in the city. And the new mayor who just came into power, we expected him to continue the crackdown on Airbnb, but he went much further than everyone expected. And a few weeks ago, he announced that after...
Does that dude carry that thing around with him? Is that a cane, or is that one of those royalty things? What are those things called?
November 2028, the city won't be renewing any tourist rental licenses, which will effectively mean that if this goes ahead, from 2029 onwards, there will be no Airbnb available in Barcelona, no tourist rentals at all. But it doesn't end there. Airbnb might not be about to disappear just from Barcelona, it might be about to disappear from the whole country. The central government is currently debating updating.
You guys know where Airbnb started? It was in one of my college courses. Basically, I'll have to double check it to make sure I'm 100% right. But basically, there was a convention and nobody could get hotel rooms for it. And these guys decided to rent out air mattresses to people going to the convention. So basically, it was just a place to sleep. And I think it was like $50 a night or something. You know, and like I already explained, during conventions like in Vegas and stuff, hotel rooms can go up anywhere between 200% and realistically 2,000%. I've seen hotel rooms go for $1,000 a night that are that can go for anywhere from $100 to $200 a night normally. Anyway, so they just rented out these air mattresses for people just to sleep. You know, you don't sleep a lot in conventions anyway. And then they did it in another location, then they did it in another location, then they did it in 2 locations, and 3 locations, and 4 locations. And that's why it's called Airbnb, because it started on air mattresses. Now they're a, multi-billion-dollar company. But basically, imagine you start a company and you just have like 8 people sleeping on air mattresses in a room, just like it was under a natural disaster you know, evacuation area or something. Little tidbit for you. I'll double check my facts. If it's wrong, I'll edit it out. If it's not, I'll leave it in.
The law that handles housing in this country, so that property owners, effectively the HOA, or we call it the comunidad here, can vote to veto or to ban other owners from opening tourist apartments or running Airbnbs in the building. It's just very clear that it's going to be very, very few buildings and apartment blocks that are going to vote that they do want to have Airbnbs in the building. So while these measures appear to be largely popular across the cities in Spain, there of course has been pushback from interested parties, particularly in Barcelona, for example, the Association of Tourist Apartment Owners.
Wow.
They've come back and said, look, this measure of banning Airbnb, this is not going to solve the housing crisis. You know, they've said that only 0.77%, less than 1% of the homes in the city are tourist rentals, not enough to move the needle, they're saying. And also they're saying it's going to have flow-on effects. So, for example, they've said that 40% of the tourist accommodation in the city of, you know, tourist apartments, Airbnb, hotels, of the whole pie, 40% are vacation rentals and Airbnb and the like. And they say that if you ban those, it's going to prevent certain categories, particularly of tourists, from coming, especially family tourists who, you know, families who travel, who really
tax it. Tax it. Why would you eliminate the group of people who are probably have the most money and are spending the most money? Think about it. If someone's renting out an Airbnb for 3 weeks, they're not the same as someone who's getting a hotel room for 3 nights. Tax. It will all balance out. Trust me. Come from the largest economy in the world.
rely on apartments because it's just much easier for families to be in an apartment than to be in a hotel room. And they say that the trickle-down impact of closing these Airbnbs and tourist apartments means that shops, restaurants, museums are going to have less customers, less tourists, and that businesses are going to close. And of course, those who run Airbnbs in the different cities that are cracking down are complaining as well. And they're saying that if Airbnb is banned, they're not going to convert their homes into long-term rentals. The idea behind a lot of these crackdowns in the cities is that if we close Airbnb, all these 10,000 apartments in Barcelona will become available as long-term rentals for local tenants, locals. But landlords are saying we're not going to convert them into long-term rentals because the current rental laws, they argue, are too pro-tenant and leave the landlords unprotected. There is a risk, I guess, that these Airbnbs are closed down and don't actually go onto the rental market. But
I've had a lot of discussions with Germans about rental agreements. In America, when you rent out a home or an apartment or a condo or anything, you draw up a lease. And that lease has a time period of anywhere from month, if you're going month to month, there are month to month leases, to, 5 years on a house, 10 years, whatever you want to do. As a landlord, you draw up a lease, and then your tenant has the right to approve that lease or not approve that lease. And with all of the stipulations in it, things in it that you think are ridiculous. Doesn't matter. It's part of the lease. It's a contract. Two people are agreeing on terms. If those two people are agree to those terms, that's your lease. So let's say you have a lease for a year, and in that lease it says that the landlord can come by the first Monday of every month, make sure that everything's okay with the house. Now, that's not normal, but if I was renting out a house, I'd probably do something like that. And that lease says, okay, the tenant's in charge of cutting the yard. The tenant's in charge of all repairs under $100 or $200 or whatever. There's all kinds of different agreements. And after a year, you don't like the tenant, you don't like his attitude, you don't like how many cars he has, whatever. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have a reason. I'm not renewing your lease. says in the lease, I got to give you 30 days notice. If I'm not renewing your lease, I'm giving you 30 days notice. I'm not renewing your lease. You better get out. You got to get out now. You don't get to just live there for the rest of your life. Or the lease may say a mandatory 10% increase every year. Or it may not mention anything because the next year is a new lease. Well, you were paying $1,500 a month. Now you're going to, now the market dictates that I get $2,000 a month. Now, I'm not advocating to be some jerk landlord who's looking for a reason to ruin everybody's day. What I'm saying is, especially like in Germany and apparently in Spain, when you give too many rights to a renter, it hurts the market. There are people that are not going to invest in property to rent out because it's too difficult. That doesn't happen in America. In America, you sign a lease and that's it. And you go year to year or whatever. And most landlords, if you're a good tenant and I don't need to sell the property, of course I'm going to renew your lease, especially if we've talked about a rent increase based on, just normal inflation. It is not uncommon. My office lease has right in it, goes up 3% or 5%, whatever it is, each year. That's just standard. Everything goes up in price. So it's just right there. Renewed, year after year after year. Why wouldn't you want a good tenant? However, if you've got a tenant who is calling you every day because, they saw a squirrel in the yard, or because, they flushed the toilet and it got backed up, and you go over there with a plunger and you hit it 3 times and now the toilet works, stupid stuff like that, enough. You got a couple of neighbors calling you saying, hey, this guy's got traffic coming in and out of here all the time. I don't know what's going on. Every Friday night, he throws a party in the backyard, keeps me awake. No, he's gone. I'm not saying that renters shouldn't have any rights. They have rights in America. You can't just throw somebody out. You have to give them notice. If they're in a lease and they haven't broken the lease, they haven't broken their agreement, their side of the lease, you can't throw them out until the lease expires. Do they have rights? Whatever rights are in that lease, that's what you sign up for. But in Germany, apparently, there's only like 3 reasons you can get rid of somebody out of your house. Imagine trying to sell a house and the renter has a lifelong right to stay there. I mean, it's crazy. Anyway, apparently Spain's got some of the same problems. And it's going to bite them. If they're cutting out all the Airbnbs and they're making it difficult to lease to people, and God forbid if he says they control market pricing, which is just insanity, then why would anybody invest? Why? It's just easier to buy and sell than buy and rent. We'll see.
I think it is fair to say that banning Airbnb is not going to miraculously solve Spain's housing crisis. In the same way the housing crisis is being caused by multiple factors, it's going to need multiple, different policies and different ideas to deal with it and to tackle it. In fact, the Harvard Business Review report on the New York City Airbnb ban found that actually tourist rentals weren't the main driver of rental prices going up. And the report argued that regulation would have served the cities and locals' needs more and more effectively than an outright ban. Also,
if you ever want to know how to run a city, especially when it comes to real estate, take New York City and do the exact opposite. Dead serious. The exact opposite. They have rent control, disaster. They have scarcity, disaster. They have all kinds of programs that do nothing but hurt that city. It's a mess. Just my opinion.
The report noted that hotel prices in the city have shot up about $300 per night. And specifically here in Spain, when we talk about housing,
well, it didn't shoot up $300 a night in New York City's defense. It shot up to $300 a night. Big difference.
Is the fact that we simply need more homes to be built and we need more social housing to be built. Plus, there is a massive mismatch between supply and demand. There's currently 3.7 million homes in this country that are completely empty, and most of them, about 80% of them, in good condition. In fact, the apartment just above me here, the entire time we've been living here in this apartment, has been empty. But in short, unless the multiple factors that are causing the housing crisis are addressed, we might find that there's a big hullabaloo about banning Airbnb, rightly or wrongly, and it just doesn't move the needle on housing prices that much. But I think it's also important to step back and zoom out to remember that this whole issue and what protests are talking about is not just housing. It's about unregulated mass tourism and the way it's impacting on their traditional spaces and on their historic centers. While housing is the key issue, it's also about how the country can just better manage this influx of people, whether it be how they visit the Plaza de España square in Seville, or where they're living and staying in the cities, whether it's in hotels or whether it's in apartment buildings where, you know, locals are living their lives and hoping that there's not people dragging suitcases up and down the stairs, you know, every single day. Okay, so what does this all mean for you and your plans to travel to Spain? Well, let's talk about the protests first. So I think it's important to underline that these protests have all been peaceful protests. Nothing has gotten out of control.
Strike that. I filmed this video just before things, well, did start to get a little bit out of control. Last weekend in Barcelona, protesters started squirting water from water pistols at tourists dining in the city. I'm all for Spaniards asking their leaders to ensure tourism is well managed, but attacking tourists with water pistols is sad and totally counterproductive. Have these people...
You should be arrested. Or better yet, maybe the tourists just order like some tomato juice and maybe they just fight back. How disgusting. I mean, just how disgusting do you have to be? I mean, you're just sitting down at an outdoor cafe eating lunch and you get assaulted by these idiots? Not cool.
People with water pistols never been tourists in their own lives? Do they not plan to travel anywhere? This has been the only incident of this sort so far, and hopefully it stays that way. Okay, back to the video.
And now let's move on to the accommodation side, the Airbnb side. Well, right now, Airbnb and tourist vacation rentals are available throughout the country as they have always been. Nothing has changed there. But this is a very fluid situation. It feels like we're right in the eye of the storm right now. So clearly with Spain potentially going to become the most visited tourist destination in the world, the country is at a moment of reckoning right now with how to handle tourism and how to handle this influx of people and how to make sure that the locals feel like they're benefiting from it but not being negatively affected by it. Let us know what your thoughts are. I know this is a big topic. You know, I'd love to know. Let us know in the comments down below.
All right, guys. Well, there you go. Interesting video. I was not aware of this, and it's a little disheartening, to be honest with you. But hopefully they figure it all out. To me, just tax it. Some people are going to pay it, some people aren't. That alone is going to reduce your visitation rate and increase your income. Just seems simple to me. But what do I know? Just an average middle-aged American. So that's going to do it for this one. If you're new to my channel, it's anything and everything that interests me as an average middle-aged American. I am focusing on Europe right now mostly. Traveling to Europe, learning about Europe, learning cultures, countries, learning more about my own country, America, setting the record straight when I feel that there's misinformation about America in a respectful, civil manner. Check out the comment section. It's usually very active. Very happy with that. We're shooting for 1,000 subscribers. I could use your help. And thumbs up always goes a long way. I appreciate all of you, whether you subscribe or not, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.